Hey friends, you think I'd stop trying to make this video because it's embarrassing the amount of times I've tried to make this now, including one that I already posted and then someone commented on it. I was like, oh, you don't really understand what I'm trying to say. Oh, okay, because I went back and watched the video and I was like, okay, I took a while to get to my point. I can understand like how this person didn't understand what I was talking about, because if you didn't watch the whole video, then you wouldn't have understood what I was saying. So, yeah, it's my bad, my mistake. It's all a big learning curve, and yeah. So, anyways, I wanted to make this video because, I mean, first off, I have a lot to share. I have thoughts, and I really like sharing them with you guys. And I really love hearing like your feedback and how things land with you or whatever too, because it's just, we're all in this thing called life together. We're all just trying to figure shit out, and it I mean, it's not that complicated. It can be so simple, but yet at the same time it feels so complicated sometimes. And I don't know if you guys can relate to me at all, but you know, I am, as a manifestor, I'm a 4/6 splenic manifestor. I am such a people pleaser, and this is a conditioning thing from when I was very young. And like, I even have a photo of, where's my phone? I don't know where my phone is right now. Oh, I'm recording on it. Jesus. I don't, I have a photo of me like on my homepage that's me when I was very little, and I feel like that was the last time that I actually felt like I was free. I don't know. And I can't describe it any other way. It's not like I like consciously was like, yes, I'm free when I was a small child, but I don't know. There was just something. I feel like, especially as manifestors, we get kind of caught from conditioning early on that, you know, to people please and not rock the boat and not make waves, and you know, just, we don't want to offend people, we don't want to cause conflict, and you don't have to be a manifestor to understand what I'm saying. I feel like it's a thing that can be a collective yeah, I understand what you're saying type of thing for a manifestor. You know, with this big energy that feels awkward sometimes. You push into people and they don't like it, or like you push into people and they're so inspired but then like too inspired, and like there's just, I feel like it's so polarizing sometimes to be a manifestor. And also, like, that makes me think of the 5 line because of that you know, I'm sure, and this conversation that I'm saying is like, you don't have to be a manifestor to relate to what I'm saying. It's just that I'm talking about it from my experience and using certain language based on human design in order to explain a couple things. Now, why do I love human design so much? I use human design a lot with the clients that I work with. So I practiced for probably about 8 years as a healthcare professional, and just really realized that, you know, I felt like there were just pieces missing. I felt like just something, there were just pieces that didn't, yeah, things missing. And also going through my own recent cancer journey. I'm a cancer survivor, and I have just really deeply come to understand that healing is an art and a science. And you know, I come from a very like, I need to be research based background. I need to have all the functional medicine stuff to support what I'm doing, and what have you. And I still see that stuff and acknowledge it and respect it. At the same time, I also really do see the power in applying personal development tools. Like, I consider human design to be a personal development tool into physical healing. So it's like acknowledging that, you know, our thoughts, our identities, our belief systems can impact and influence the health of our physical bodies overall, like a psychic root of disease type of mentality around stuff. And I really love helping people, like guiding them and supporting them on this journey of figuring this stuff out, because it can feel really complicated, like I had said earlier on in this conversation, but it's also so simple. Yeah. So what I wanted to mention here in this video is the whole idea of impacting people, influencing people, initiating things as a manifestor. I think personally that my interpretation of what that means as a manifestor has been confusing from the very beginning, I suppose, and it's taken me a few years to actually kind of figure out, like, what do I feel, what to me does that mean? You know, what does it mean to be an initiator of something? And I've had some really, really inspiring responses in the comments of some of the videos that has like totally shifted how I see this stuff. And I've talked about it a few times before, but I want to talk about it again because I just feel like repetition, reiteration of like saying things in a slightly different way is really helpful for people, because it's helpful for me and I hope that it's helpful for you too. It's also nice for me to talk things out because I'm a defined ego in human design and I really like doing that. So initiating, impacting as a manifestor in human design doesn't need to be this huge masculine energy thing. It doesn't need to be this like how I feel like it's taught to us in the very beginning stages of learning and understanding. Like when you first find out what your human design type and you're reading about it and you're like, huh, you know, I don't know if you guys can relate to me, but I read that and I was like, I get it, but I don't understand. Like, I don't feel that way. I can't see myself being this person or having that type of energy that I'm reading about. In fact, I actually kind of resonated more with being a projector because of that, or a generator. But at the same time, that could also come from some, you know, some conditioning things of, you know, how we choose to show up in the world based on, you know, belief systems that are instilled on us early on in life, all that type of stuff. There's so many things, explanations for why we could explain it that way. But, you know, this isn't a story about me. This whole video that I'm making isn't about me and my childhood conditioning. So I'm not going to go into it. I'm trying to share to you guys about how my opinion on the whole concept at a face level, at a superficial level, I suppose, of what impacting an initiation as a manifestor, how it's explained versus how it is actually experienced in real life, especially as a woman. Because I feel like being a female and being a manifestor has a certain little extra embellishment aspect to it that I don't think that everybody who's a manifestor, if you don't identify with being a female, understands. So what I'm getting at is Gene Key 2. If you guys know Gene Keys, go and read Gene Key 1 and Gene Key 2. So Gene Key 2, and I've talked about this a little bit in another video as well, is the fabric of existence. So it's the feminine, because the feminine, according to Gene Key 1 versus 2, is the fabric that keeps everything held together. So it's the in-between. When we think about atoms, the in-between is where the energy, it's where the potential lives, it's where the possibilities lie. And it's so beautiful. Like it's such a creative, artistic, like mysterious part of life, versus the masculine, which is the Gene Key 1 thing, is the physical thing, the particle, the atom, the doing of the thing. And we can all identify with the masculine aspect of that. It's understandable. It makes sense. So when you think of a manifestor and impacting, initiating, of course it makes sense that, well, initiating means that you tell someone what to do. You inform, you say, I'm doing this, I want you to do that, this is this and that's that, like doing energy. It just seems very doing, right? But when you look at it from a feminine perspective of feminine energy, feminism, or the feminine energy piece, isn't a doing piece, it is a being piece. And women who are manifestors, we are the being that moves things. We are the fabric of existence that keeps the particles together. And I think that that's so magical when you think about it, that you know, having like such a beautiful association and understanding of feminine energy, as well as being a manifestor, means that, you know, it's this artistic, ethereal influence that people may not consciously even realize is happening. You may not even consciously realize that it is happening. That's what's so beautiful about it. Like, you impact and influence people just simply because you are, right? Like, you don't have to change anything about yourself. You don't need to become this like go-getter, doer type of person unless you want to be, right? That's the thing about life. It's like you also don't need to know anything about human design to live a good life. Like, there's nothing that you're not cracking the code for things to understand human design. It's just a language for you to explore and contemplate certain things by. It's not dogma, it's not rhetoric, it's not anything that we need to like stand up and be like, oh, I'm a manifestor, so I have to live my life this way. No, you get to try things on. You get to experiment. It gives you another tool to be like, I wonder how it would feel if I experienced this, or if I was more assertive this way, or if I did something like this based on, some readings that you had read about, right? It's just another tool. That's all that it is. It's just another tool. I think that ultimately you don't need to know anything about human design to actually manifest being someone who lives by their design. And I have seen that recently, very recently. A friend of mine, I just recently found out what her human design was, and it was kind of like shocking to me because she didn't know or care what her human design was. But for me, it was so fascinating because I've been acquainted with her for a couple years now, and I've seen how she shows up in her life and how she interacts with people and whatever. And it was so fascinating to me just to be like, wow, okay, I had after watching her, okay, I think you're this. I wonder if you're this in human design, and she was, and that was so crazy to me. So yeah, you don't need to like follow human design in order to like live a truly like aligned life or live out your design completely. I think there's so many layers to it, but ultimately I really do believe that it's all about just learning how to be happy. Like, what makes you happy? What brings you joy in your life? Are you satisfied with the life that you live? Do you have a purpose in life that you feel really good about? I do think that those are such important questions, and they're surface level. Like, people can ask you those questions and you can answer at a surface level way, but also to really critically look at it and deeply like contemplate about what does it actually mean to be happy, and what makes you happy now might not be what makes you happy like a year from now. You're allowed to change, you're allowed to switch things up, you're allowed to play around with stuff and experiment, try different identities on, just play. And that's what I really enjoy about human design, of like understanding that. So back to that like impact and initiation piece, it's, you don't need to be like, oh, I impact. Like, I have to say this, I have to say that, I have to use my throat to like say how I'm feeling. Or if it doesn't feel right, maybe it's because you're uncomfortable, because you're not used to it, or maybe it's because it just doesn't feel right. Like, just try different things on, experiment, see how things go, because ultimately you can't do any wrong. You're not doing anything wrong by playing around with any of this stuff and experimenting, thinking that things one way, learning a bit more and thinking something's another way, and trying it on, being openly curious is the way that we come across things and come to conclusions and play around with stuff in life. And it's just, life is never black and white. It's never going to be. There's always going to be a transient experience of all of it. It's always going to be moments after moments after moments, and you're constantly going to be shifting between all of those. So anytime that you ever think that you need to take what someone's saying to you of like, this is how you be a manifestor, for example, in this certain conversation, and you try it on and you realize it doesn't really fit well for you, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. All it means is, maybe I've got some exploring to do. Why doesn't this feel right? Like, exploring why. Maybe I don't completely understand what I'm being told, but also maybe too, like, this doesn't fit. this outfit don't fit me. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we're constantly evolving and creating, constantly evolving and creating. You being a manifestor doesn't mean you fit into any box whatsoever. It means you are all the boxes. You can be whatever you want to be. That's what's so beautiful and so powerful about just learning to understand like what the true essence of life and living is. And yeah, it's beautiful. And I also want you to understand too, and I feel like I've kind of touched on a little bit throughout this video, is that you just being who you are is enough. You just being who you are is what impacts and initiates people. You are the flap of the butterfly's wings. You are the stir of the water. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. At the same time, different energy types do different things with the energy that's around us, and it's equal power but different. Nobody has more power, more influence than anybody else. It's just how we use the energy that's around us to create certain outcomes in life. So when you impact and initiate, it's just you stirring the water to like bring creative ideas to other people, or for them to like, you know, be stimulated in a way that like makes life happen, that makes beautiful things come to fruition. You don't need to be the ultimate person that like has the conscious idea that spreads this conscious idea. Like, you don't have to be the CEO of the company and be a manifestor. The manifestor is likely the one that's influencing, you know, how things are going on, like shaking the energy up in order to get people to see things a different way or to be sparked or ignited. But it seems like it's such a great power and a great responsibility, and on a certain level it is, but all the energy types are great power and a great responsibility, and they all interplay together in this beautiful way. So someone had recently said on a post that, you know, how the power and responsibility thing was kind of intimidating, and I can understand that. It can feel that way when you were first introduced to human design, when it's just being explained to you in this theoretical manner. But when you apply all this stuff in daily life, then you realize that it's a little bit different, especially after you like play around with it a little bit and realize this, because yeah, that's interesting too. But yeah, just know that it is a great power and it is a great responsibility, but everybody has great power and great responsibility. And you just being the best that you can be is just checking how you're feeling, clearing your energy, being squeaky clean with what that feels like. If you don't even know what that means, don't worry about it, because it doesn't have to be this whole thing. There's nothing wrong with you. You know things already. Things are already good for you. You have figured this stuff out, and don't let anybody else tell you that you don't know what you're doing, because we all have an infinite wisdom within ourselves, and that needs to be trusted. And to me, in my opinion, I feel like one of the main things that I have learned through a personal development journey and on trying to understand human design is that nobody outside of me can ever tell me who I am or how I show up in my life. Like, I know that I'm a certain thing in human design, but that doesn't mean that I'm just that thing, and that doesn't mean that I need to fit in any cookie cutter that anyone tells me that I fit into. I can take what people are telling me and experience, question, explore what is being said to me, and decide for myself if those things are true or not. So I hope that kind of helps you a little bit on your manifestor journey, because it's so beautiful, but at the same time, I think there's just a lot of crap out there, and I don't think that you need to fit into any one cookie cutter box. You're not defined by anything. You can make up your own definitions for who you are. And what I think is so great about human design is that you're being curious about what's out there and what the experience is, and how your experience interacts with other energy types. Because it is also beautiful, and you're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. You are initiating and impacting just because that's simply who you are, and that is a really beautiful thing, and you don't need to change anything about that.